What if I told you that over 800 years ago, right here in North America, there was a city larger than London? Not in Mexico, not in Peru, not somewhere far away. Right here, in what is now Illinois. A city with massive earthen pyramids reaching towards the sky. A population of 40,000 people, more than most medieval European capitals. A sophisticated society with complex religion, advanced astronomy, and organized government. And then, without a great war, without a foreign invasion, without any clear explanation, it vanished. The people disappeared. The buildings crumbled. The civilization that created it faded into legend. For centuries, Europeans who arrived here had no idea this place ever existed. They called this land wilderness, believing no great civilizations had ever flourished here. They were wrong. This is not legend. This is not speculation. This city existed, and today, most Americans have never heard its name. This is the story of Cahokia, America's greatest ancient city, a civilization that rose higher than anyone expected, dominated the continent for centuries, and then collapsed so completely that even its memory was erased. Why did 40,000 people abandon a thriving city? Where did they go? And what does their disappearance tell us about the fragility of civilization itself? Today, we're going to uncover the truth about America's lost ancient metropolis, and the answers might be closer to home than you think. If it's mentioned at all. Why? Was it deliberately forgotten? Was it suppressed by those who preferred a narrative of empty wilderness to justify colonization? Or was it simply lost to time, its story buried under centuries of soil and neglect? The truth is complicated and troubling. For too long, American history has been taught as if it began with European arrival, as if nothing significant happened on this continent before 1992, as if the land was waiting, empty and useless for civilization to arrive. Cahokia proves that narrative is false. But understanding what Cahokia was and why it disappeared requires us to go back nearly 1,000 years, to a time when this region was undergoing a transformation unlike anything seen before or since in North America.
Cahokia was located near present-day Collinsville, Illinois, just 8 miles east of the Mississippi River, directly across from what is now downtown St. Louis, Missouri. If you visit the site today, you'll see open fields, a few preserved mounds, and a modern highway cutting through what was once the heart of a great civilization. At first glance, the landscape appears unremarkable: flat farmland, quiet suburbs, no towering stone pyramids like Egypt, no massive temples like the Maya. But beneath this ground lie the remains of a civilization so complex, so sophisticated that archaeologists are still uncovering its secrets. The first European Americans who encountered these mounds in the late 1700s couldn't believe Native Americans had built them. Some claimed they were natural hills. Others invented elaborate theories about lost tribes of Israel, Welsh princes, or even Viking explorers. The idea that indigenous Americans could have created a city this advanced contradicted everything they'd been taught. And here's the thing: while civilizations like Egypt, Rome, Mesopotamia, and even the Maya dominate history textbooks, Cahokia is often reduced to a footnote, if it's mentioned at all. Why? Was it deliberately forgotten? Was it suppressed by those who preferred a narrative of empty wilderness to justify colonization? Or was it simply lost to time, its story buried under centuries of soil and neglect? The truth is complicated and troubling. For too long, American history has been taught as if it began with European arrival, as if nothing significant happened on this continent before 1492, as if the land was waiting, empty and unused for civilization to arrive. Cahokia proves that narrative is false. But understanding what Cahokia was and why it disappeared requires us to go back nearly 1,000 years to a time when this region was undergoing a transformation unlike anything seen before or since in North America. Belief. Something happened around 1050 AD that convinced people from across the region to converge on Cahokia. Some archaeologists call it the Big Bang of Cahokia, a sudden dramatic increase in construction and population that can't be explained by gradual growth alone. What could cause that? One theory is religious revival. Perhaps a charismatic leader emerged claiming divine authority. Perhaps astronomical events, a supernova, an eclipse, a comet, were interpreted as signs from the gods. Perhaps people believed Cahokia was a sacred place where heaven and earth connected. Whatever the reason, people came, by the thousands, and they built. At its peak, Cahokia covered more than 6 square miles and contained over 120 carefully engineered earthen mounds. Let that sink in. Not stone pyramids that could be carved, earthen mounds that had to be built by carrying millions of baskets of soil by hand over decades. Scholars estimate that 20 to 40,000 people lived here, a population comparable to London, Paris, or Rome at the same time. This was not a village. This was not a small settlement. This was a city, a true city, with urban planning, social hierarchy, specialized labor, monumental architecture, and centralized government. And it existed in North America 800 years ago, long before Europeans ever crossed the Atlantic. But cities are fragile. They require organization, resources, and most importantly, they require belief. Belief that the system works, belief that the leaders are legitimate, belief that the sacrifices required to maintain urban life are worth it. At Cahokia, that belief was built on cosmic power. At the center of Cahokia stood Monks Mound, the largest earthen structure ever built in the Americas. To give you a sense of scale, Monks Mound is 100 feet tall, covers 14 acres at its base, and contains approximately 22 million cubic feet of earth. Its base is larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Think about what that means. Workers carried millions of baskets of soil, one at a time, up ramps and stairs for decades to build this monument. This wasn't random construction. The mound was carefully shaped with 4 distinct terraces. It was aligned with astronomical precision, and it was constantly maintained, repaired after floods, rebuilt when sections eroded. At its summit likely stood a massive wooden structure, possibly a temple, possibly a palace, possibly both. Whoever lived there was not just a political leader. They were seen as a living connection between the people and the cosmos, a divine ruler chosen by the gods themselves, and their power was absolute. Archaeological evidence suggests that the elite who lived atop Monks Mound and in the central plaza enjoyed luxuries that common people could never access. Exotic goods from across the continent, fine pottery, elaborate jewelry made from copper, shell, and precious stones. Meanwhile, the laborers who built these mounds lived in simple thatched houses on the outskirts, eating simpler diets, working harder, dying younger. Inequality was built into the very structure of the city. But the elite maintained control through more than just force. They controlled something far more powerful: the knowledge of the heavens. Just west of Monks Mound was one of the most extraordinary structures in ancient America, Woodhenge. Imagine a massive circle of red cedar posts, each over 20 feet tall, arranged in a perfect circle 410 feet in diameter. From the center of the circle, an observer could watch the sunrise over specific posts on solstices, equinoxes, and other significant dates. This was more than a calendar. This was a demonstration of power. By predicting when the sun would rise, when the seasons would change, when to plant and harvest, the elite of Cahokia claimed divine knowledge. They could say, "The gods speak to us. We know what they want. Obey us and the cosmos will remain in order." And as long as the predictions worked, as long as the harvests were good, the people believed. But here's the uncomfortable truth about power built on belief. When belief falters, power collapses. And at Cahokia, there are signs that belief was beginning to crack. Archaeological excavations have uncovered something disturbing in the central plaza near Monks Mound: mass graves. One burial mound, known as Mound 72, contained the remains of over 270 people. Many were young women, buried in layers, apparently sacrificed during a single ceremony. Nearby were elite burials with thousands of shell beads, copper artifacts, and other treasures. Another group of burials showed signs of violent death, possibly executed prisoners or sacrificial victims. Cahokia was magnificent, but it was not peaceful. Human sacrifice, inequality, forced labor, these were the dark foundations of urban power. And as the city grew larger, those foundations began to crack. By the year 1200 AD, Cahokia had reached its peak: 40,000 people, over 120 mounds, a network of trade spanning the continent. But beneath the surface, problems were accumulating. First, environmental strain. To build and maintain the city, workers had cut down vast forests. Trees were needed for construction, for fuel, for cooking, for ceremonies. The landscape around Cahokia became increasingly deforested. Without trees, soil eroded. The land became less fertile. Flash flooding became more common during storms because there were no roots to hold the earth in place. At the same time, the climate was changing. The medieval warm period, which had made agriculture easier, was giving way to cooler, less predictable weather. Droughts became more frequent. Harvests became less reliable. Second, social inequality. As resources became scarce, competition intensified. The gap between elites and commoners widened. Archaeological evidence shows that diet quality declined for most people, even as the elite continued to live in luxury. Resentment grew. Third, political instability. Around 1175 AD, something dramatic happened. A massive wooden palisade wall was built around the central plaza, a wall over 2 miles long with watchtowers and defensive bastions. Why would Cahokia suddenly need defenses? What were they afraid of? Some archaeologists believe the wall wasn't built to keep outsiders in. It was built to keep insiders out, to protect the elite from their own people. Cahokia was fracturing from within. And then came the final blow: the Mississippi River itself. The river that had made Cahokia possible, bringing trade, transportation, and water, turned against it. Evidence suggests that around 1200 AD, a massive earthquake struck the region. The Mississippi River's course may have shifted. Flooding increased. The reliable waterways that connected Cahokia to the world became unpredictable and dangerous. Imagine living in a city where the climate is changing, food is scarce, inequality is extreme, and the elite are walling themselves off while claiming divine authority. How long would you stay? By the early 1300s, the cracks had become chasms. People began leaving. First, a few families,
then entire neighborhoods, then whole districts emptied. There's no evidence of a great war, no burned ruins, no mass graves from invasion, no foreign conquerors. Cahokia simply drained away. By 1350 AD, the great city was largely abandoned. Monks Mound still stood, but the wooden structures on top had rotted away. The plazas were empty. The trade networks had collapsed. The cosmic authority of the rulers had failed to hold back reality. The people who left didn't disappear. They dispersed. Some joined other communities along the Mississippi. Some migrated to the plains. Archaeological evidence suggests that descendants of Cahokia's people can be found in tribes across the Midwest and Southeast. But the city itself died. Within a few generations, forests began reclaiming the land. Grass covered the mounds. The wooden posts of Woodhenge fell and rotted. The Great Plaza became a meadow. By the time Europeans arrived in the 1600s and 1700s, Cahokia was already a ghost, a mystery buried under centuries of soil. And here's the tragic part. Even the memory of Cahokia was erased. The tribes living in the region when Europeans arrived didn't claim descent from Cahokia. Some didn't even know who had built the mounds. The knowledge had been lost, deliberately or accidentally. When French explorers encountered the mounds in the 1700s, they named the site Cahokia after a nearby tribe, but that tribe had no connection to the ancient city. The real name of the civilization that built this place has been lost forever. For 2 centuries, Americans debated who could possibly have built these mounds. Some claimed they were natural formations. Others invented theories about ancient Phoenicians, Vikings, or lost tribes of Israel. Anything to avoid admitting that Native Americans could have created something this sophisticated. It wasn't until the 20th century that archaeology definitively proved that Cahokia was built by indigenous Americans, and even then, it took decades for this knowledge to enter mainstream education. Today, Cahokia Mound's State Historic Site preserves what remains, but it's a pale shadow of what once stood here. Highways cut through the ancient city. Suburban sprawl surrounds the mounds. Most of the site has been destroyed by modern development. The greatest ancient city in North America has been almost completely erased, physically and from memory. But the questions remain.
So, what really caused Cahokia's collapse? Was it climate change that made the city unsustainable? Was it environmental degradation, deforestation, and soil erosion reaching a tipping point? Was it social inequality, a system so exploitative that people simply walked away? Was it the loss of religious legitimacy? Rulers who claimed cosmic power but couldn't deliver rain when it was needed? Was it a natural disaster, an earthquake or flood that destroyed the infrastructure? Or was it all of these things, cascading together in a perfect storm of collapse? The truth is, we don't know for certain. What we do know is this: Cahokia was real. It was massive. It was sophisticated. And it collapsed. Not from foreign conquest, not from barbarian invasion, but from internal pressures that the system couldn't withstand. And that should make us think. Because Cahokia isn't just ancient history, it's a warning. It shows us that even the most powerful civilizations are fragile, that environmental limits are real, that inequality can tear societies apart, that belief systems can collapse when they stop delivering what they promise. Cahokia reminds us that no civilization is permanent, that cities can fall, that complexity can unravel, and that sometimes the most dangerous threats
come not from outside, but from within. 800 years ago, 40,000 people lived in a great city in the heart of North America. They built pyramids that touched the sky. They predicted the movements of the sun. They created art, conducted trade, and believed they had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos. And then, they were gone. Today, most Americans don't know Cahokia ever existed. It's been erased from textbooks, from popular consciousness, from the national story. But the mounds remain, silent witnesses to what was and what could be lost. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If a civilization this powerful could vanish so completely that even its name was forgotten, what does that say about our own? If you found this story as fascinating as I did, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Did you know about Cahokia before today? And what do you think caused its collapse? Subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten history, because the past has lessons for us, if we're willing to listen. Thanks for watching, and remember, civilizations don't last forever, but their stories can, if we tell them.